Well, look, thank you all for joining us. And can I start today by, you'll be pleased to know that the National Cabinet is a red tape cutting organisation, and we've agreed today that I'll make a brief statement at the start and then we'll go to questions. The old COAG arrangements would have had us here most of the afternoon at this press conference making statements, and so I thank the Premiers and the Chief Ministers for further streamlining action by the National Cabinet. Australia is working together. We're working together, and Australia is coming back from COVID-19 on the health front, on the economic front, on so many. And I want to thank my colleagues who are here with me today and Premier McGowan joining us remotely for the amazing job they have all done individually in their own jurisdictions in Australia's toughest year in generations. But I also want to thank them for their tremendous support working together with each other, but also with ourselves as the Commonwealth as part of this innovation of the National Cabinet. This has been a very important group, a very important leadership group for this country, bringing together our federation, seeing it work in a way that this country, I don't believe, has ever seen. And so I'm indebted to all of my colleagues here. We all run our own governments. Our own cabinets are paramount in the decisions that we make federally here and, of course, in each of the state and territory jurisdictions. But the way we keep coming together, we get into the room, we get things done, and I thank my colleagues very much for their cooperation and support. We're also joined by Professor Kelly and the ACT Australian of the Year, Professor Brendan Murphy. I'm sure the ACT Chief Minister would give a good big shout out to Brendan, and they'll be joining us to answer questions on vaccines and the normal health issues that come up at our post-National Cabinet briefing. Today we had the opportunity to discuss the vaccine issues that the Health Minister and I reported on earlier today and talk through further issues around the vaccine rollout, making very good progress there, and I'm sure you'll have questions, but we're on track for that rollout and working closely together with the states and territories for what is a very unique rollout of vaccine. The states and territories are always partners in the administration of any vaccine, and we absolutely trust them, as you'd expect us to, because we are partners in the delivery of health services around the country. This is a very unique vaccine and a very unique rollout, and so the bespoke arrangements we have here, though, continue to build on that partnership. We also agreed today the need to tighten some arrangements, particularly around aircrew and as well as on diplomats. These are the vulnerabilities that I wouldn't say are at a great scale, but they're important vulnerabilities. As the year goes on and as our success continues, the states and territories become even more laser-like focused on the areas where potential vulnerabilities can emerge. And so we had good discussions on how we can tighten arrangements in both of those areas, working both bilaterally with the Commonwealth as well as together. It was also very important today, we agreed that we could go forward on developing bilateral arrangements for seasonal workers in Australia. Each of the states and territories are confronted with different circumstances on the ground and different capabilities and capacities. In Queensland, for example, there's been a very, very successful on-farm quarantine for seasonal workers program that has been underway and has really been supporting the Queensland agricultural sector and the primary producers. But now we want to ensure that we can move to other arrangements in states and territories where that need is critical. Premier Andrews, I know that it's a very important issue in Victoria presently, as it is in many other states, and we've agreed that bilateral arrangements will be made on the health orders that will be applied to seasonal workers coming into states, and that will unlock the ability for the Commonwealth to then provide seasonal worker visas, which will confine those seasonal workers in those jurisdictions so they remain completely under the health control of those states and territories, and that will be resolved in the bilateral arrangements that exist between states and territories and the Commonwealth. We also agreed a very practical emergency services, fire services protocol for the upcoming, and we're very much in it now, summer season, and that is just a very practical set of arrangements because, you know, we move emergency services and other work, volunteers and workers around the country in the course of disaster seasons, and that has been a piece of work that has been underway by officials for some time, just a very cooperative and practical piece of work. Other issues we agreed on the economic front today, the progress of the JobTrainer program. It's now operational in all states and territories bar the Northern Territory, and that will be very soon implemented in the Northern Territory. This is a game changer for young people in particular, but people of all ages who are changing careers, the additional places. It's a big partnership. It's a big financial partnership, $1 billion partnership between the Commonwealth and the states and territories on top of our existing commitments to vocational education and training. And data sharing is important to ensure that program stays up to the mark. We also agreed today on two important regulatory congestion busting initiatives that we've discussed on earlier occasions. The first one is with the EPBC Act, which, as you'll know, federally is the subject of changes that we're seeking to pursue as a Commonwealth government. Premiers, Chief Ministers and I agreed today is that the first priority is to ensure we streamline the administrative processes. Samuel's review, which will be released soon, will make recommendations, as the interim reports has flagged, on environmental standards at a Commonwealth level. But what is important in the first tranche of legislative change, and the priority is to ensure that the existing standards that relate to the existing legislation and regulation, no more, no less, must be codified, and that we can streamline the approvals process to a single-touch decision that occurs at the state level. Now, we estimate that at a Commonwealth level a few years ago to be costing the Australian economy almost $500 million every year for projects that should go ahead. They should comply with the environmental standards and the regulations. That will occur. There will be important reporting arrangements that ensures compliance with those standards as they're administered by the states and territories. But we all agree it needs to happen faster, and it needs to happen in accordance with the standards that we have now. A second phase, after we're able to legislate those arrangements, is to take into account the recommendations of the Samuels Review that may make recommendations about any improvements or changes to those standards more broadly. But we don't have to solve that problem in order to solve the first problem, which is making things go faster. To that end, we also agreed today that the Commonwealth is supported to lift the threshold for Infrastructure Australia assessment of co-funded projects by the Commonwealth from $100 million to $250 million. This will free up Infrastructure Australia to focus more on the big projects, and it will declog the process in getting these projects moving sooner. We want to see these projects on the ground because it's a critical part of the economic recovery that will continue in 2021. And today, 7 states and territories, and I don't think it'll be too long before ACT comes on board as we resolve a couple of issues which are quite bespoke to the ACT and its geographic arrangements more than anything else, is mutual recognition of occupational registration. This doesn't sound like a terribly illuminating issue or one that's going to capture national attention, but I can tell you, if you're a tradie and you need to have multiple registrations as an electrician or some other worker because you're moving between states and territories, it's a pain and it costs you money and it slows your business down and it costs jobs. And I want to particularly thank the Treasurers as part of the Council of Federal Financial Relations who've done the heavy lifting on getting that agreement today, and 7 states and territories have committed to that and indeed, I understand, signed that today. Next year, we're going to stay focused. We're staying focused on the recovery, both on the health side and the economic side. The National Cabinet, we all agree, is a great privilege to be involved in, each and every one of us. We take those responsibilities and our respect for each other very seriously, and that will continue to provide the platform for what I think has been a game changer in the Australian Federation this year, and we want to see that game change impact so many other issues. This afternoon, the Federation Reform Council will meet, and an issue that is close to every single one of our hearts is mental health and the need to work together to address the gaps that occur in mental health across Australia. We all have responsibilities here, and this year has taught us just how important people's mental health is in this country. It's reminded us of that again, and we look forward to applying this very effective mechanism to solving those difficult challenges. And with that, I will throw to questions.